So most games in the Borderlands franchise have had some amount of skin customization, and this is most easily shown in Borderlands 3, where we had just a ton of Vault Hunter customization, changing their heads with tons of different options and changing different pieces of their body parts and also being able to change their colors. And then we also had a handful of weapon skins that we could apply to pretty much any weapon in the game, a couple of them also being fully animated. And it seems that going into Borderlands 4, we're actually going to have this system expanded upon even more, not only just adding more options to customizing your Vault Hunter, but also more options for customizing your weapons with different skins, but also adding in the ability to customize different elements in the game. But that's primarily what I want to go over in this video, because we also got some teases and looks at some of this customization from a Nintendo specific trailer for Borderlands 4. Now, I think the best place to start is actually these teases we got for Vault Hunter and weapon customization and skins, which was from a trailer specific for Nintendo and the Switch 2. The developers just kind of going over how they've developed the game specifically for Switch 2 at certain parts. But as they're going through this trailer, we got a bunch of looks at art posted up on the walls, and we got a look at some pretty interesting stuff. So first off, we got to look at a bunch of different head options, a bunch of different head customization for different characters. A lot of them being shown off was for Vex the Siren, but a bunch of them did look really cool. And I think one of the most striking things is how different these make the characters look. Pretty much every one we've been able to see has made the character look significantly different. One of them is Vex in like this big helmet with a bunch of writing on it, where she has different hair sticking out the back. But I think one of the coolest ones that kind of shows the direction they're going with these different skins is showing Vex with a very different head. It's pretty much turning Vex into a robot, because instead of having a human head, she now has this small little platform on her neck that seems to be like a gravitational device, and then she has a robot head floating above it with like a little fan at the top. So she doesn't have a human head anymore, she just has this floating robot head now, just on the same character. So it seems like with a lot of these character customizations, or the ones we've seen so far, are seeming to be much more outlandish, and they're trying to change up the characters a lot more than in previous games, at least some of the ones we've seen, because in a lot of previous Borderlands games that did have this Vault Hunter customization, a lot of the options would just kind of change up the color or change up the character a little bit. It wasn't until kind of Borderlands 3 and further into Borderlands 3 where you start to get much more interesting ones. And during some of the other trailers, we have also gotten some looks at some other Vault Hunter customization. A lot of them look really good, and some of them are also changing up how the characters look pretty heavily. So I think we're in pretty good hands with the amount of customization and how interesting these Vault Hunter customizations are actually going to be in Borderlands 4. Now, another piece that was shown off during this Nintendo trailer was a bunch of different weapon skins, and this is actually the main reason I wanted to make this video, because we got a look at one specific weapon that had 11 different weapon skins we got to see just from this trailer. And I don't know what weapon this is. It kind of looks a bit like Maliwan, but it also kind of gives me like Hyperion vibes. At one point during the trailer, on a wall, there was a bunch of these images that showed the same weapon with 9 different skins. Then we got to look at 2 separate different skins for the same weapon. And all of these skins are very different. So the first one seems to be like 8-bit inspired with kind of the Vault symbol on it. We got another one that looks more kind of techie that might be animated just upon the look. We got one that seems to be very Order inspired, because it's that kind of white and gold look that we've seen with some of the Order enemies and some of the NPCs in the game. We got like a Hot Rod one that's all blue with the kind of old school Hot Rod flames. We got one that's this weird green graphic that also looks to kind of be animated. We got one that's red with white stripes. We got a really clean looking one that seems to have some type of symbol on the back, but it's white with these kind of purple outlines and accents. We got one that looks to be a beach. The top of the weapon kind of looks like a beach. The bottom looks like waves. That one could be really cool animated. Then we got this neon green one with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green. So 9 different skin options, a bunch of them looking pretty cool, some of them looking like they would be animated. Then we got 2 more. One that kind of looks like it's supposed to be ice with all of these lines and stuff through it, maybe animated as well. Then we got one that also looks pretty different to a lot of the other ones, where the weapon looks kind of a really used and low quality, but it has a bunch of blood splatter all over it, and and it has a bunch of tally marks, probably being the kills. This looks much more bandit inspired. But one of the main things besides some of these skins looking really cool is that we got to see one weapon with 11 different skins, and this was just what was kind of put up on the walls of images of these skins. So presumably there's going to be a lot more. And if we go back to Borderlands 3, I think this is a similar amount of total skins we got in Borderlands 3 for weapons, maybe even more, because even though Borderlands 3 had this similar weapon skinning system where you could put these skins on pretty much any weapon, we didn't actually end up getting a ton of skins throughout the entirety of the game. So we already know of those 11. We also know you could get the hazard pay skin by signing up for Shift on the official Borderlands 4 website, and when the game gets released, you'll get this hazard pay skin, which is this red, black, and white skin with kind of like the hazard tape taped around it. So that looks like a pretty cool skin. So that's 12 different potential skins that, if this skin system is working this way, you'd be able to put all on singular weapons, which again I think is kind of beating out Borderlands 3 already. We also got to look at some other weapons that may be skins. Like we got to look at this one weapon that just looks like it's skinned. This could be the base skin for this specific weapon. It could be a unique, but it's all these like glowing lines just drawn all over this weapon. It just kind of looks like it would be a skin that you could put on a bunch of different weapons. So just based upon like the small amount of teasers, it seems like we're getting more skins in Borderlands 4 than any other Borderlands game. But that's not all, because we also know of a lot more areas to actually customize things in Borderlands 4. Because besides our Vault Hunters and besides our weapons, we also know that there's two other areas we're going to have a ton of customizations to go unlock for them. And that's first off our vehicles. If you don't know, vehicles are going to be summonable on you. The game's going to be much bigger, a much more seamless world with a lot less loading screens. So vehicles are going to be a lot more usable. You're going to be on them a lot more. And every Vault Hunter has their own unique vehicle that looks completely different to the others. But we know with all of those vehicles, you're going to have a ton of different options to customize them. You can customize how they handle, you can probably customize different weapons on them, and you'll be able to customize how they look. There will probably be a bunch of different areas that you can customize different colors. Maybe you can get skins to make the vehicle look completely different. So we know that's going to be an option. That's always been somewhat of an option, but they didn't really add a ton of different customization options for vehicles in the past. And with every previous Borderlands game, it wasn't these massive seamless zones, so you didn't use vehicles as much, but they're going to be used a lot more here, and you're going to be able to customize them more. But then we also have our new robot friend in Echo 4, who's going to be our little helper in Borderlands 4. They can show us what objective we're trying to go to. They help us hack Order Tech and take over different areas in the game. And they actually do hold our quest rewards. So in Borderlands 4, instead of having to go talk to Lilith a bunch of time to finish your quest, the quest will just seemingly complete, and then Echo 4 will hold the quest rewards, and you can go into your inventory and talk to Echo 4 and pick up your quest rewards from him instead of having to go back to the quest to turn it in, which is super nice. But Echo 4 is also going to be fully customizable with unlockable skins. And actually talking about Echo 4 gives us a pretty good glimpse into new ways we can earn skins, because specifically when talking about Echo 4, they said he's fully customizable. You can change his colors, change how he looks, and they said there's a ridiculous amount of options for this, and presumably they're using the same skin customization system they use for Vault Hunters and potentially use for weapon skins. But they said there's a ridiculous amount of skins to customize him, probably meaning there's going to be a ridiculous amount of skins for everything else as well. They also said that these skins are going to be dropped as well. So it sounds like you'll be able to kill enemies, you'll be able to kill bosses, and there'll be a bunch of different skins you can earn through that way. And if there's going to be skins as drops, specifically for Echo 4, it's pretty much a guarantee that there's going to be drops for weapon skins, there's going to be drops for Vault Hunter skins, there's going to be drops for vehicle skins. And I think that's one of the best ways they could go about doing skins, is have them as actual drops from enemies. Like we have vault dungeons in Borderlands 4, allow completing that dungeon to give you a chance to get a skin from one of the bosses in there. And there's going to be a lot of mini bosses and main bosses and big bosses throughout the entirety of Borderlands 4. Allow like all of them to have some skin that they drop. So that's seemingly one of the big ways in which we're going to be getting skins. We also know that doing quests, or at least doing main quests, will be able to be giving us skins as well, because the main quest that the developers were on during the Borderlands 4 showcase actually had one of the rewards being a skin. It was like a paintbrush icon that looked to just be some innocuous skin for something. Now with this being kind of a generic icon, it could just be this gives you any skin for anything, or it could be that a lot of these different aspects are actually shared sharing skins. Maybe not weapons because those seem a bit different, but maybe there's like different skins that are shared between like Echo 4 and vehicles and maybe Vault Hunters, like maybe the different colors or things that you can unlock are shared between them. Maybe there's different themed skins that are similar between all of those that you can also just unlock for all of them once you unlock a new skin. So it seems like in Borderlands 4, they are heavily expanding the skin system, which is something I've actually said in previous Borderlands 4 videos that I want them to kind of expand the cosmetic offerings in Borderlands 4. I'm not talking about like a microtransaction shop. I'm just talking about in game, because when you go to a lot of other RPGs or looter based games, even ones that are live service with microtransaction shops, a lot of them still have a lot of skins or cosmetics to earn in game. I look at something like World of Warcraft where pretty much any weapon, any item in the game you unlock as a skin. Defeating different bosses can give you tons of cosmetics. Pretty much doing anything in the game could give you new cosmetics. And I think Borderlands has always been a franchise that, while it does have some cosmetics, it really hasn't gone super deep into the cosmetic aspect. And I think that's something that they could very much go into to expand the reward offerings in Borderlands 4. Because while we're going to have such ridiculous amount of grinding to do to get all the weapon builds and combinations we want, just having a bunch of possible skin drops from all these bosses or other things we're going to be farming just makes that content more rewarding and allows you to just customize your look, your weapons and everything even much more. And having this skinning system in Borderlands 4 where you get a skin and you can apply to any weapon is going to be really cool when we have the new weapons part system where any weapon can look pretty different depending on the parts you get on it, and applying a skin to that will obviously apply to every part of the weapon. So you could really get crazy amount of different rolls of the same weapon and the same skin will look quite a bit different on it. So this is something I'm very much in favor for. Just allow us to earn a lot more cosmetic items through just playing the game and defeating bosses. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.